Let's do a June 2025 garden tour. Starting with the lemon tree, pretty much all the flowers have dropped off and are starting to turn into lemons. A little bit hard to see because they are green, but there's bunches like this all over the tree. Heading over to the first trough here, I have pulled the onions. There was no bulb, so they just didn't do well in this bed, which I wasn't that surprised. I really randomly planted them. I'm letting this strawberry plant here take over this portion of the trough. So excited to see if this one produces any fruit. It is one of two strawberry plants that hasn't given me any strawberries yet this season. Right next to that, we have our marigolds, thyme, blueberry bush, and a sweet pepper plant. It is the middle of the day and it's a warm day, so this pepper plant does look a little bit stressed out, but it will be fine. You can see here we have our first pepper growing in, which is very exciting. They do turn orange and red, but you can pick them when they're green. I'm letting it get some color on it before I pick it for the first time. Here's just an overview of the garden. You can see everything has just taken off, and we'll take a closer look at each of these. This pineapple plant is still very yellow, has not turned green. I've tried some different nutrients and it still smells fantastic, but obviously it's lacking something. I do like the yellow. I think it's really nice contrast between these two blueberry bushes. But yeah, something's definitely not right because all of the pineapple sage that I see at like the nursery, for example, is definitely green. So probably something wrong there. The blueberry bush, you can see, is going crazy. I've been harvesting at least a handful, if not more, of blueberries every day, mostly from the back of the bush so far, which is interesting because this side gets the full sun, but it seems like the ones that are in the partial shade are ripening faster. I have pulled some of the onions that were in this bed. I did get two big bulbs, which was very exciting, one red, one white. So it did do better in this bed for some reason. And now I have a echinacea planted here to give some perennial flowers to this spot. This marigold is also doing really well. And then given that the two onions I pulled look so good, there was like three others I pulled that didn't. I'm going to see how these last two do before I pull them. So they haven't fallen over yet completely. So I'm going to give them a little bit more time. And then just panning up a bit to the flower bed, which is full of sunflowers, zinnia, calendula, and chamomile, which you can't see right now, but it's on the other side. This has just absolutely taken off. Sunflowers are all over the fence line now. The zinnias are producing new flowers pretty much every other day. And I will say, once we get over there, you'll see the calendula is starting to go, but the chamomile is still holding strong. So heading over to our first spoon tomato, I would say these tomato plants are not the prettiest, but they are producing tons of fruit. I'm getting at least a cup a day at this point. I'm picking them when they're still orange because they will ripen off of the vine. So you can see here, there's actually a couple that I could pick right now. I'll come back and do that in a bit. Right next to that, I think this is lemon balm. I keep forgetting, but look how pretty these are. The bees absolutely love these flowers. Next to that, we have our zebra apricot tomatoes. I've already picked a few of these to enjoy earlier this month. And it looks like soon we will have a few more, which is very exciting. I feel like the fruit really just started growing overnight. And it could be that it's finally getting warmer again. We had a cold streak for the last few weeks, and I think that stunted fruit development for a bit. So heading over here, we have a couple of pepper plants. This one with all of the flowers is a shishito, which I'm really excited about. That was probably the #1 pepper that I wanted to grow this year. So I'm glad that this one is doing the best. It's definitely like short and bushy, and I hope that's going to be a good thing. So far, just like a ton of flowers and a couple of fruit coming in. And directly next to that, we have a bonnet pepper, which I haven't seen really any flowers yet. But you can see some buds in here, so something's definitely happening. And then just oh, this is lemon balm. So what are you? Let's go look. Okay, it is lemon mint. I must have called this lemon balm last time. That's a pretty mint plant. It just doesn't look very minty to me. Okay, this is new to the garden. I believe I didn't show this last month because it wasn't in yet, but I have some pole beans, which I thought I was gonna have to train, but they're just naturally growing up the pole, which I guess makes sense, but really excited about these. They're gonna be purple when they come in, which will be easier to pick than the snap peas. And then behind that, we have another zebra apricot, which is just completely full of fruit, still flowering. This does taste very good. I'm positive I'll be growing this every single year. Probably won't grow the spoon tomato again just because the growing habit is so, I don't know, it feels like a very invasive type tomato. They do taste good. They taste like a tomato in a tiny form. So they are really good on salads. Definitely will enjoy them this season. I think I just like prettier things in my garden. Like these snap peas, which are really growing up the arbor here, which I love to see. This one's doing so much better than this one over here. Actually, I had to pull one out that had dried out. So even though this one gets a little bit more shade, this one's a lot happier. And these purple flowers are still doing really well, which is nice to see. But eventually these will die off, probably sometime in July. They are starting to produce less pods as well. So I think we're nearing the end here. But the good news is that the grapes are coming in. And so eventually this will take over this trellis. My plan is to let it grow over the entire thing. And then I'll let this grape kind of take the rest of this real estate here, which should be good. Over on this side, we had a bunch of onions before, have since been replaced with tomatoes. So we have two, I think they're called Yurluru tomatoes. These are Cosmos that are growing in on the side. Those will finish probably within the month and a half. So by the time that tomato really bushes out, I'll likely pull those. And then I wanted to have some blue in the garden. So I added this salvia from a local nursery, local herb farm actually. And the bees are already loving it. So it's been fun to have this in the garden. I also have two really tiny tomatoes that I just had in seedling trays that honestly look half dead, so we'll see what happens. I had an Amalia tomato in this plant, but we've had very high winds, and the wind snapped it at the base, so it died. And then strawberries, I don't think there's any strawberries to pick today. You can see we have some unripe ones still coming in. They're getting smaller for sure. And I forgot what this one's called, but it's the one that like blooms twice a year. And so this one's actually putting on fruit for the first time, and it's got tons of flower pods. I just went through and thinned out all the runners, attempting to transplant them, but I think they're not going to make it, so we'll see what happens there. So over in the middle here, we have a nasturtium and lemon verbena, and I've already made a tea from drying these leaves, and it was really good. So probably will propagate that and expand how much I have of it in the garden. The green stalk is also doing well. I would say the bottom tier, especially like that tomato there and this pepper, seem to be thriving more than the top tiers. So I don't know if these just get too much heat or what it is, but the smaller variety of tomatoes that I put in last month are starting to come in, which is great. And you can see like this pepper plant is quite tall, but does not have very many peppers on it. And then here is a closer look at the flower bed. I think this one's so funny the way it grows, that sunflower. But this is just so fun to look at every day. And there's definitely a few in here that I need to go through and deadhead, but just really loving it. And then on the other side, we do have another green stalk. These ones are all, they're doing okay. Definitely more pest activity on this one. Which who knows why, but again, the smaller tomatoes that I put in that are meant to be patio tomatoes are coming in and looking pretty healthy. And then we have the pepper plant over on this side, which is also starting to put on some flowers and some fruit. I think a bee just landed on the borage. Isn't that cool? Happy little guy. That's why I put that in here, just for him. And then the squash plants and cucumbers are starting to flower. So here we have our China Jade, which has its first flower coming in. This one is a lemon cucumber. I see some bud development, but nothing, colorful yet. And then over on that side, the yellow crookneck squash has a really lovely flower. And then the smaller Italian tomatoes are still like growing very slowly, but overall seem very healthy. So here's the strawberry plants. I mentioned that I don't know if they're going to make it. They could just be going through transplant shock. But I probably should have just left them on the mother plant and figured out a way to get them into some soil from there. So we'll see if they make it or not. If not, I have plenty of things to go in there. This is the other Italian tomato. You can see lots of tomatoes are coming in. And then our last apricot tomato over here, going absolutely wild. This is an Amalia tomato plant that I started just a few weeks ago. This is the same variety I mentioned over there where the stem snapped and it died. So I'm glad I had a backup. And this one is better supported. So hopefully the same thing doesn't happen. Did notice these are particularly fragile. So if they're not the best tasting thing on earth, probably won't grow again. And then we have our pumpkin plant, our cinnamon pumpkin girl, which is coming in well. I'm very excited about that. And then our second flower bed, just full of snapdragons, chamomile, calendula, and milkweed. And then I just planted in, what is this called? Aster. And then this one I also keep forgetting the name of. This one is called a goldenrod. So this should have really pretty yellow flowers later this season. Here is the other side of the flower bed where you can see the chamomile and calendula. I've pretty much been deadheading these every day, but the calendula is definitely starting to die back. And that is pretty much it inside of the fenced area. And in the wooden flower bed here, we have our dwarf teddy bear sunflowers coming in, some more red salvia, and then some parsley in the front here. I also put in some random beans seeds that I had, so we'll see if those come out or not. Or they might have been squash. I can't remember. We'll see if it actually grows. This is the bed I've really struggled to grow anything in, so at least the sunflowers look very promising. And that's pretty much it for the month of June. Just lots and lots of new growth. I feel like this is the funnest time of the garden season before things really start to die out, and I'm just enjoying it.